Onegaishimasu.
Onegaishimasu.
Onegaishimasu. Okay, so let's just do a couple minutes of quick stretching. Literally just a couple minutes, because I want to get to it. I got my second vaccine yesterday in the morning, and by 7 o'clock at night, I was down for the count.
You could really feel the effect of it.
What's that?
I said, so you could really feel it had a like a sedating effect.
Well, plus the fact that I hardly slept at all the night before, because there was
Yeah.
Between those two together, it was I was tired last night, so I slept about 11 hours, and I'm a little achy today, but other than that, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, so make yourself comfortable and just do a couple minutes of, I don't know if we want to call it silent meditation or mokuso or just visualization or breathing or whatever it is you want to call it, but take some time to just settle yourself down and center. Buzzword, okay? So whatever it is that you care to focus on or put your thoughts to or take your thoughts away from. Okay, so it's been 1 year, just about. For some of us, 1 year to the day. Joan was saying it's 1 year to the day that they closed their dojo for a while. And we've all been through some huge, in our, well, of course, in our personal lives and our professional lives, but this is not the venue to talk about that. But in our Aikido lives, we've been through some huge change. Loss, difficulty, loneliness, but we've also had the opportunity for growth. I know myself, those of you who know me, you know I'm probably one of the most traditional people around that you'll find, right? And unmute yourselves, and if people want to say something, say something. We'll figure it. We have 16 people, so we won't have like 20 people talking at the same time. But let's be, unless you have noise in the background. But it took me a while because I'm stubborn and I'm egotistical and I'm a little thick. It took me a while to be in a place where I was like, okay, well, this online stuff is all we got. It's not coming. We're not getting back on the mat regular for a while. Because at first I was like, well, maybe we'll be able to be back on the mat soon. And I don't like this online stuff. And the technology really baffles me, and it still does. But, so it's, I don't know, how do you train without throwing someone, all this kind of stuff, all these thoughts that come and go, that come and go, that come and go. And it kept me from embracing an opportunity for growth. But now, some months ago, quite a chunk of time ago, I started to, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm not grateful for COVID. Please don't get me wrong. But I'm grateful for the opportunities that, if I choose to take them, COVID brings for my growth, for our growth, for our Aikido community's strength and staying power. So we've all been through some great change, and a lot of us, and many people much more than me, have been very innovative and helped their students to grow and such. And I find for me that I'm growing a lot. I got to get out of my comfort zone. I have had to get out of my comfort zone and do things that maybe I would have never thought of doing before, and think about training in a way that I would never have thought about it before. And I'm grateful. And I'm grateful for everybody who shows up at these things, my regular Zoom classes, and then these Sunday series, and then the bigger events like the Bridge, which is happening next week. Shameless plug. Kay, would you put the registration link in the chat?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everybody. I'm grateful for every single person who's here today, and not just the 16 of us, but every single person who sticks with it, that's keeping Aikido alive. It's a hard thing, and it means a lot. So I encourage you, if you feel like it, to think about that, and think about the change that you personally and the art as a whole has gone through over this past year, and prepare ourselves for more change. Because now some places are starting to get back on the mat. Some place, social distancing and masks, no touching. Other places are on the mat training, touching, and no, some places even no mask and they're doing normal training. Other places still can't even gather. The people in England, it's against the law for them to gather in groups. They can't. So think about, so we're moving, we went from normal training, I'm going to keep using normal, though who knows what normal is, to complete isolation, no touching, separation, nobody in the dojo. So it was from one extreme to the other. And now we're all going to be in different places in a hybrid in the middle. So as we gather in person and online for these things, we all have to be even more flexible, or I'm not going to say even more, but flexible in a different way than we were. And so I encourage you to think about that a little. So enough of my blabbing. Today I thought we would look at Tenshi Nage a little bit. Ryote-ruri Tenshi Nage. And if anybody has any questions about anything along the way, and 45 minutes is not a lot of time, and I spent some of it talking and stretching, but I think it was important. But let's go, and if you would just stand up and move through just the regular Irini style Tenshi Nage. Just move through it a number of times and think about what you're doing. Think about what your body's doing as you do this. If you don't have a lot of space, then move small. But move through it. Please, if you feel comfortable, let your video be video and feel free to unmute yourselves if you want. Thank you, Kay, for putting that in there.
Sure.
Okay, so we all basically know the movement, which is great. It's wonderful for all of us. So let's look at a couple, we don't have a lot of time, so we can't look at everything, but let's look at a couple of details. Okay, and some of these details will have to do, will be applicable not only to this technique, but we can carry those principles, those thoughts, those techniques of movement, as it were, over to other techniques as well. So what's the first place, what's a place that people have trouble with? Where do people struggle, somebody? Anybody, don't be shy.
Well, I think
Timing.
Who's that?
this is Dan. I'm just going to say, I think one thing that people make a mistake with is that they try to enter without taking the uke's balance first.
Yeah, and it ends up being like this, like hitting a wall. So we end up boom and hitting a wall. So we have to think about the quality of the attack. Uke has to think about the quality of the attack. What sort of attack are they giving? And depending on what variation of the technique the teacher wants you to practice, the attack has to be appropriate for that. So for today, because we're talking about this collision that happens where you end up colliding with that because you're not taking the balance, let's assume that uke is coming in with this sort of a force. This sort of a force. So if this sort of a force is coming and I need it, there's no way I'm going to take balance. There's no way I'm going to be able to move. It's going to be whoever's got the most weight is going to back the other one over. So we have to talk about this blending. We blend so that we can then use the blending to our advantage. Nage can use the blending to their advantage. So as this attack comes, we can absorb it and send it back out. Absorb it and send it back out. Absorb it and send it back out. And you can even use your other hand. I've been exploring a little bit about being, having a dissociative identity disorder and having, being both uke and nage at the same time. So you can even use your other hand to provide some force or attack or direction or whatever you want to call it, so that you can feel yourself absorbing it. So you can actually, instead of just going like this, but actually apply some pressure here and feel it come into your body and feel your body adjust, absorb, and send it back to another direction. So if you want to give this a try, please, if you feel like it. And it's even though the grab would be like this in real life, if I'm being both people at the same time, look what it does to my shoulder. So let's just be flexible in our brains. and adjust like this. And now as the attack is coming in, try to just go forward and move into the technique and be honest about it. See how that feels, as opposed to this absorbing it and moving through it. Try both and see how they feel for you. And really try to embody both uke and nage at the same time as much as possible. And
Sensei, I didn't catch the difference in the second version that you were talking about.
the second version is as the attack comes in, you go forward.
Oh, okay.
So this not being able to get the unbalancing because you collide.
Okay.
This version is absorbing it and changing it. And the second one is just wanting your own way.
Okay.
Esley, don't worry about your internet connection at all. If it's bad, it's bad. Nothing can be done about it. No need to be. It's all is good. I'm just glad to hear here. Are you able to feel the difference?
Hi, Sensei.
Any questions or any comments about what you experienced or anything like that?
Blending from a grip that's being pulled in toward uke has to be a little different, I think, because they're pulling. So rather than taking an arm down, I find I'm really hitting in very directly first, and then I can go down.
Definitely. If we have a pulling version, the movement is different. But right now, uke is entering a pushing, if we want to say a pushing version. And how do we deal with that? We absorb it and then change it instead of colliding with it. The pulling, Lee's absolutely right. The pulling, if uke were to engage in pull in some direction, and there's a variety, then it would be a completely different situation. But for now, uke's intent is coming in. So we have this absorption and changing of the line, which allows us to not collide and allows us to achieve the unbalancing, to achieve kuzushi. All good? Questions? Any questions? If you have questions, just ask. You can put it in the, you don't even have to put it in the chat. If you put it in the chat if you want, or just speak. So then the question is, where do we take the person to unbalance them? So, and this is something that people who have been coming to my Zoom classes have heard me say ad nauseum. So this is, okay, this is our traditional stance. I'm gonna stand like this. This is just Shizentai, right? If I can stand on both feet solidly, I am 100% stable. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
So I can see if somebody is shaking their head and giving me this frown look. So 2 feet is as stable as possible, is the most stable. Of course, we have upper body stuff, but we're not worrying about that right now. As far as our lower body, if someone can be solidly on 2 feet, they are the most stable possible. So let's say 100%. If someone is on 1 foot, this is like 50%. And of course we have, you know, if I've got a little bit here, maybe I'm 60%, maybe I'm 70%, maybe I'm 80%, 90%, 100%. But for simplicity's sake, this is 100%, this is 50%. What about there? 0%. I literally don't have a leg to stand on, haha. There's nothing there. There's nothing to support me. And what about there? 0%. So to make it simple, 100%, 50%, 0%, 0%. And of course, there's this, it's analog, so there's places along the way. So if I am, as I said, I can be 70% or 80% or 90% or 100%, but I can also be, if I'm halfway, for example, between the empty space and the full space here, maybe I've got 25% stability. You know, so there's all these little nuances, but if we think of the big picture, now, our traditional Japanese Aikido stance, 100%, 50%, 50%, 0, 0. There's nothing there. So when Nage unbalances Uke for Tenchi Nage, we want to try to find the empty spot to make it as easy as possible for us, I think, is one way to explore it. If in doing Tenchi Nage, so okay, so Nage, Uke attacks, Nage absorbs it and sends it right back here to my back foot. I'm pretty stable. Or Nage absorbs it and just comes up and I'm on my front foot. I'm pretty stable. Or heavens forbid, they let me be on both feet. Complete stability. So the most effective and efficient place is completely in that 0% spot, the empty spot. So makes sense? Any questions about that? So I'd like you all, if you choose to, is to stand up and sort of explore those places a little bit. And you can explore them just with your lower body, as I did at first, or you can integrate the Tenchi Nage movement into it if you would like. But just, I'd like you to, one of the things this pandemic has given me the opportunity to do is to really think about how these techniques can work better for me instead of forcing them. And one of the things I've really been exploring is this whole, the place where I want to unbalance the person too. So give it a try if you would, please. And you can try it as Uke. First, I would ask you to feel it with your body. Feel how unbalanced, and don't forget that Nage is absorbing you first. Don't forget that Nage is absorbing you first and changing the line. Let's not forget other parts as we move forward with things. And as Uke, so you're entering and you're giving an invading attack, and then feel where Nage is taking you, and make a choice, make a specific choice where Nage is going to take you. And please try to be as honest as possible and don't shortchange what your body has the opportunity to experience. So really feel what's happening. Feel what it feels like when Nage allows you to have both feet. Feel what it feels like when Nage allows you the front foot only, the back foot only, or an empty spot to the back. There's also an empty spot to the front, but that would be a different situation. Be a different situation.
Okay, well.
Nancy, there is a question in the chat. I don't know if you can see that.
I could if I looked, thank you. When doing STEMI, do you put the weight on your back leg and then shift it forward? As Uke, Javier?
Nage.
As nage. That's a whole nother category of how nage moves their weight. Yeah. So we're going to get to that next. Okay. Thank you. Very good. You always have such great questions. I appreciate it. Okay. Any questions about this so far? Yes, no, maybe so? No? Okay. Andrew, nice to meet you. So then the question becomes, as Javier says, asks, what does Nage do with their, what does Nage do with their weight? What does Nage do with their weight? So remember, in order for Nage to have any opportunity to do a technique, something has to disrupt this. It's the same thing, the 100%. Once the 100% starts going away, Nage has to respond with something. So Uke is, in this case, invading. So they're moving by, and there's different ways to do it. Of course, I could be proactive and move first, and before I even let them grab or anything like that. But that's a different situation. We have to think specifically about what the situation is. So I think in this situation, the way Uke is coming and attacking and invading, so Nage's weight gets shifted backwards. And it's because of that that they absorb it and change it and start moving. So it's coming back and then forward more. But if the attack does not cause Nage to go back, then there's no reason to do this technique. There's no way, there's no possibility to do this technique. So the weight does shift and then shifts back, then shifts forward, returns to forward, and then goes even more forward, the whole body. And at the end, we're solid 100% again. So now, if you would be Nage, and it's once again Uke, have your other hand be Uke, and explore this, that Uke is invading. And of course, there's different angles of invasion. They could come straight in. They could come over here. They could come over here. They could come here. They could come here. All kinds of variations. But my brain can't handle that. So let's just keep it as simple, coming in and causing Nage's weight to shift. So now the weight is on the back foot. Now front and front. So just, and as you do that, keep in mind that dead spot, the 0 spot that you want to unbalance Uke to. And give that a try if you would, please. And remember, you want to bend your knees. Depending on how much you bend them will depend on how tall your Uke is. So be specific. How tall is your Uke? Where do you have to take them to put them to the empty spot and lower them to break their balance? Be specific in your thinking. Be detail-oriented. And make sure, don't shortchange at the end, be solid at the end too. Feel your body, as Nage, feel your body change from 100%, 60 or 70 or 50 or whatever you decide, to here, and then returning to 100% at the end. Feel your body do that. Don't waste the opportunity. Okay. Any questions or comments or feedback? Anybody?
I get a
Anything?
good feeling of where the Tenshin Nage attack hand is really, when it's really connecting. And of course, I want my opponent to be off balance. And maybe it really doesn't matter. If they're off balance, just about any time after that is good. On the other hand, they're going to want to recover too. But the second part of that is the distance. I'm having trouble imagining exactly where their neck is. But anyway, that's what I'm struggling with mentally.
That's a really, really good point. And once again, you're in my brain, as you often are. Leah is a very, very accomplished judoka and judo instructor. And I enjoy our training together very much because he brings very, very interesting topics and questions and feedback, and it's wonderful. So this is part of the problem, and this is kind of a two-part thing, Lee, so please bear with me. People enter for Tenchi Nage, and of course we have the absorption thing, and then they end up like this. What's wrong with this picture?
They're going to get thrown
Why?
because they're sending their balance backwards.
Why? How? What about this appendage?
Your arm is outside of your center.
Yeah.
If your arm's outside your center, it's going to be easy to throw.
Exactly. I can't affect, this is almost the weakest spot possible. The weakest spot possible is if my arm is ripped off and laying on the ground. But this is almost the weakest spot possible. I want it in front of me. I mean, we do have Hasso, but even with Hasso Kamai, we're not way back here. Even with Hasso, if we're thinking about it in sword terms, we're not way back here. So we want to be careful that in this movement, we don't let our arm become on our side. Our strongest place is on our center line. And if I'm uke and I'm grabbing here, my body is upright. So the way I learned Tenchi Nage at the beginning was you bring your arm up, bring your up hand, your heaven hand up past uke's ear. So I always ended up like this. Because uke's ear was like here, right? So by virtue of trying to find uke's ear with uke standing upright, my arm was automatically off my center. And this still isn't even so bad because it's in front of me. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is, let's say not effective. This is not effective, this is not effective. This is still not effective. But imagine Nage is standing in front of me. And this is Nage's 10 heaven hand. It's on their center line. Right now, it's nowhere near my ear. I don't know whether I should complain towards me or towards you guys. I'm confused. So here, nowhere near my ear. But uke is not unbalanced. So as Nage takes uke to that empty spot, this is remaining on Nage's center line, but now it's coming up by uke's ear because Nage is making uke crooked. Nage is creating a situation where uke is like this instead of like this. So it brings the ear, I said the other day I should draw a face on my fingers. It brings the ear over there to Nage's center line. So we have to think about that, and that will address that question, I think, about when do we know when it's enough? And laying my hand already, we start knowing it's enough because uke is falling down, and we're not just leaving them be solid and doing this. I mean, when you do osotogari, you're going to take them over here. You're not going to let them be upright, right?
Right.
That would be a horrible situation for you, for anybody. So then the question is, when is it enough? When they fall down. You should not have to throw somebody. They should crumple. If you do a technique absolutely on the effective line, appropriately, you shouldn't have to throw them. They should crumple. And I encourage you to think about that if you choose to. So let's think about now about uke, and just we have like no time because I talk too much. As uke here, we're grabbing, we're being absorbed, and notice how when Nagi is going to that empty spot, attacking, being absorbed, being changed, sent back, and as Nagi is going to the empty spot, look at how crooked my body is. So now imagine Nagi standing in front of me with their center line completely vertical and stable. This is a bad situation for me. So try that just for a second, and whatever form you want to use to embody it, and feel it with your body. Feel your body, feel what's happening. Okay, any comments or feedback about or questions?
What's your, and you've been talking about balance quite a bit in the Zoom classes that we've been doing. I think that's just so key to the effectiveness of the technique. If you're not aware of your own balance and you're not aware of uke's balance and taking uke's balance, it's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in the dojo, you just do it again and again and again. But in practical application, as Ikeda Sensei says, you die if you don't do it right.
Yeah. Shinken Shogu. It's life or death. Yeah. Exactly. Anything else? We're just about out of time. Of course, this is not the way to do Ryotei Tenchinage. This is a way to think about it. This is food for thought. What we do in the dojo is we try different things. The most important thing in the dojo is use this. Use this to make a choice, to think about what we're doing, to make choices, to analyze. Without this, none of this will develop in any sort of meaningful fashion. So there's many, many, many ways to do Tenchinage. I did a whole hour and a half of Tenchinage once at a bridge seminar in San Francisco. An hour and a half, I don't know, just different variations. And afterwards, Ikeda Sensei said, "You can never do that again. People will get bored with the same technique." I was like, okay. But you have to use your brain to think about different things and make choices. And this is training. We explore things, and then over time, we learn what is happening. We learn how we need to respond, how we need to give as uke, and how we need to receive and give back as nage. So I'm out of time, so I'm going to shut up so that Dan can have his time. So shall we bow out real quick? Any last questions, comments, or feedback?
Sensei.
Yeah. Shall we bow out? Arigatou gozaimashita.
ありがとうございました。
ございました。
Thank you, Sensei.